Hello everybody and welcome back. This is my friend Tommy's garage. Tommy is restoring my 2005 Vespa GT 200 that I've owned for a very long time. I bought it used with 500 miles on it. It now has 8,000 miles on it and I haven't driven it in 7 years. It's getting a full mechanical restoration in preparation for me to make a new seat. Sit back and enjoy. Well, this is the original seat that was on the Vespa when I bought it. And you could see when I got the Vespa, it had low miles. The seat was pristine. All the miles I put on it in the city begin to show on the bike, of course, and then, of course, on the seat. I parked it one day in front of a building, and the super was out there eating lunch. And he didn't pay much attention to me, but when I came out, there was a slash in the seat. And he wouldn't fess up to it. And I didn't have any cameras at the time to see how and when it would have happened. But I just did a football lace on this slash with a piece of leather thread. And over time, the weather took over the leather and it broke off. And then I just didn't care anymore because I wanted the Vespa to look junky, because when things look nice in the city, people want to destroy them. So it just became part of the texture of the city. But now that I'm up here, I'm going to challenge myself to make a beautiful leather seat cover. Now, this seat being vinyl is a little bit more weatherproof, but I'll show you an interesting thing about these Vespa seats that most people don't know. Right in here, pulls out, is an all-weather seat cover. Now, I'm never going to use the Vespa up here in the rain, and it'll always be in the garage, but that's just a little secret that most people don't know. You pull this out completely, cover your seat, and then when you're done, you shove it back in here, and then you're good to go. But the first thing I need to do is remove this cover. It's going to become my pattern for the leather. Let's take it apart. I was surprised to find that the vinyl seat cover has a hem sewn on it, and the hem is just simply stapled into the plastic injection molded bottom of the seat. So I will do the same. The staples that are in there now, they must be stainless because they're not rusty, but they are fairly thin and strong. And I'll be using T50s because that's all I have. Now I'm going to take an X-Acto and split the seam so I have the exact pattern of each one of the 3 pieces. Now, I've used the seam splitter before to open up stuff like this, but I've also used the seam splitter and realized I'm cutting the fabric and not the stitch. So I like to get in there slowly, see what's actually happening, and none of this is going to get used outside of being used for a pattern, so I don't care if I nick it, but I certainly don't want to cut it too far and realize I'm doing it the wrong way. Just nick it with a fresh X-Acto and it pulls right apart. I'm just using duct tape to cover up the cut. It just makes using this piece of vinyl that's very weathered and stiff and hard to handle, it just makes it all that much easier to use as my pattern. I want to show you what I'm planning. This type of seam is a little difficult to do, but I'm going to challenge myself because that's what I've been doing lately. This is nice too because your jeans and your clothes will not get hooked on a seam. The seat I just took apart, it was up overlaid on top of like that with the stitch right here. This leather is too thick to be able to do that, and I don't even know how they did it. Even though this looks more complicated, it actually is easier for me to do that. I have a second seat which I'll show by the end of the video, and even though it's a Vespa seat, it was sewn differently than this one. It just goes to show you when things go into production, they'll change it up because maybe it's easier or maybe they made a discovery that makes it go faster. But this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's on the other seat, which currently is on the Vespa over at the mechanic. All right, I got to cut my pattern now. Now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to need to leave at least 3/8 to maybe a 1/2 inch of seam allowance so that I can do that. This beautiful pebbled leather is from Weaver. I'll put a link in the description of where it's from. And I just do a rough cut right now because I'm going to try and make sure I get a nice accurate layout. Okay, here goes nothing. I'm going to start at the apex of this circle so I don't end up shifted. If I start here, go one way, and then go back the other way, I know that I'll be in the center. I'm going on instinct right now. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I gotta go there, and then I gotta pull this together. A lot of people are always worried about, is the stitch going to come undone if you don't backstitch? It's a lock stitch. It's designed to not come apart that easily. It can come apart, but it's not going to come apart like a chain stitch like you've seen in a cartoon where you pull the one string and the whole thing comes apart. This is a lock stitch. It's designed to kind of stay in place. Now I got to get everything up under here. It might even be easier for me to sew it from the other side since I'm used to this side already. In fact, I know this will be easier. I'm going to start in the loop that I started. Now, I don't have the benefit of the line that I drew on the lighter leather, but I'm just going to freestyle it. I have to be able to pull that around, so I have to get my hand on there. I'm not 100% lined up, but I think I'll be able to fudge it. Now, if you notice, every time I stop, my needle's in the material. If I don't stop with my needle in the material, I'm going to create a problem for myself. That looks pretty good. Now I gotta get in there and hammer the flange so that I could throw a stitch on either side of that. I might glue that so that I could bang it back. This is barge glue. Barge glue is like contact cement. You put it where you want it, let it dry for a minute, and then bend it back on itself or adhere the two dry mounted spots together. Now, since I'm looking at the inside of the seat, I don't need to be quite as careful, but I still don't want it on my fingers and stuff, that I'm getting it all over my fingers. By doing this, I'm going to be able to get the seam out of my way and fold it back tightly. I have that little leather stick there so that I could, piece by piece, bend that seam down. I don't even know if this is possible. I've never done it. This is as much as experience as I have making this seam. This is where it gets tricky going around the turn. I might have to put a dart. I'm also kind of relying on the leather to do what leather does. It conforms, it stretches, which is what's really nice about working with leather. I'll hammer this a little bit more, but now I got to top stitch it, which is going to be the scary part. And then hopefully that'll start to fall into like a smooth line. It's a little lumpy right now. I'm going to school on this seam on the front part. I should have started in the back where nobody sees it as much as right here. Home free, side one. Woo! Okay, that's one side. I got a little off track right there. Whatever, nothing I can do about it now. Now I'm gonna try and do the inside. Same thing. String broke. Now when that happens, I have to try and find right where those stitch lines started. Otherwise you have too many stitch lines and you'll perforate it and it'll rip right there. Good thing I only went a couple of inches. Okay, we're good. We got a thread behind us. Going around this turn is the hardest because now the leather is, here it was spread out and it wasn't wanting to stay in the back. Now here it's bunched up, so it's like this. So I have to try and work my way through all those little folds. And another thing is you got to make sure you don't accidentally sew a piece of what's not involved to the back. I'm using the space between my advancement foot and my presser foot as my, I'm doing exactly what I just told you not to do. Sew the bottom to the back. I just sewed that right to the back. Okay, I went back to the beginning where I was over here and I just made my way through. It seems like I got into most of the holes. I scratched the leather a little bit by having to go over it twice, but we're learning together. All right. Not bad. Not great, not bad. I was striving for perfection, but this will do. This is the inside looking. I put that on there just to keep those from pulling apart. I've trimmed out some of this flange because it shows through on the other side. I got a little pucker in there, but I'm going to have to try and stretch that out. What I have here is the middle of the back panel in the middle of this curve. I'm going to start here and come this way and then go back out that way. Let's see how we do. Now I'm going to try and go the other way. So now I'll go and we'll put the barge glue and fold that back and prep it for that second stitch on either side. There's a pretty deep scar in the foam rubber, and I'm afraid it's going to show through the leather over time, so I'm going to cut it out. I'm using a steak knife to cut it out, and I'm replacing it with a piece of foam rubber. It's not the same density, but it'll definitely be able to support the leather. And I'm just using the knife to feather it in, and then this little angle grinder to get it to be nice and tangent. Now for the first time I'm putting the leather seat on, and I'm seeing where it fits. The leather is very soft, and so when I stretch it, the back panel ends up going over the cliff there on the back. So you see the ridge is not quite in perfect alignment with the back seam of that panel. But that's okay, because it still lands evenly. And now, just the way the original seat was in place, I'm using some staples to put it in there. And I ended up going back and forth a little bit, pulling some of the awkward staples out and then hammering the rest of them in. And then I use gaffer's tape to cover up the stitches. And leather is so pliable. I'm just pushing and rubbing it, trying to get it to settle onto the shape. And there's no doubt that in time it's going to get better and better looking. Some of those little bumps and lumps around the ridge will start to fade. And now this is the strap that goes over the middle of the seat. I just cut it twice as wide as I wanted it, and then folded it together in the middle using some 77 3M spray glue. And I'm just running a rip down both sides, and then I'm ready to go. There were rivets in there, but now I'm going to put a screw right up in there. While I was fastening the leather, I had to remove the hinge because it was in the way, and now I'm putting it back on with the same size pop rivets that I had to drill out to take it off, and I put it back on there securely. And to cover up the staples, just because they looked a little unsightly, I used this gaffer's tape, which tends to conform to mostly any surface you push it on. And I didn't do it in this video, but I will go back and smear glue around the edge of that tape so it stays in place. The Vespa is back. It is mechanically restored. Tommy changed the brakes, the bearings, the tires, rebuilt the carburetor, drained the gas tank, fixed some electrical problems. Any of the lighting that wasn't working is working. The electrical switch that holds the front panel in is fixed. Everything. It's basically a brand new Vespa. Fixed the muffler. And you could see the seat that I used just temporarily has that stitch that I copied for the new seat cover. Okay, this was the temporary seat that I got so that my mechanic can use it while I worked on the seat here in the shop. We'll put the other seat on, see how it looks. Oh, I'm really digging it. It's really feeling nice on there. I just keep pushing and pulling on it just to make sure it conforms. There it is, back from the dead. I really counted this thing out. I never used it. Now that it's mechanically sound, I'm going to definitely use it now that the spring is here. And I'm most likely going to have some other projects for it for YouTube. And there it is, happy and healthy once again. And up here, I don't have to worry about the vandals that are going to slash the seat. So I'm sure the seat's going to stay in good condition for a long, long time. So I was all excited to take this out for a ride tonight, but we got a surprise snowstorm. And it's just not going to be possible. There you go. Better to be safe than sorry. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be riding the Vespa in upcoming stuff, maybe on Instagram. Thank you very much.